Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, bring you some nerd news that has happened over the past week since our last show last Tuesday. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter on Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer, Burley underscore adopter on Twitter, and, well, for a while anyway, and Burley adopter various other social media platforms like Mastodon and so on. You might know or notice, if you are a regular watcher of this particular show, a different format, trying something out a little different here, and we'll see how this goes. But before we get into that, I would like to say hello to Riley Redmond over there on the YouTube chats. And let me start with our first promo here, which is to ask you to follow us on Twitch if you have a Twitch account. Twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. That's the URL that's on your screen. In addition to YouTube, as I've already mentioned, we do stream this live on Facebook and Twitch. So, love to have you join us on Twitch, build our audience there, if you have a Twitch account. All right, our first topic of the night. Oh, and by the way, since I already mentioned a YouTube chat, if you do want to weigh in with your opinion on anything that we're talking about, or my opinion on anything that we're talking about, then feel free to do so. We do like to respond in time in the chats. So we are going to start with our first topic of the night, and that is, sadly, the death of this gentleman right here, Tom Sizemore. He passed away late last week as the result of a brain aneurysm. He had a stroke back in mid-February and just did not ever recover from it. Sizemore is known for an awful lot of stuff, over 200 credits in his IMDb listing. And you recognize him, of course, from let's see. Let's start with Passenger 57, Natural Born Killers, Heat, the amazing movie Heat, Black Hawk Down, and of course the role he's probably most famous for, the dirt collecting sergeant in Saving Private Ryan. All of that and many, many more happened in basically a span of 10 years, from like 1993 to 2003, which is also when he did the bulk of his nerd movies and nerd content, which he did a few things, many of which are really solid. Like this is from the supernatural horror or thriller The Relic. He also played, before that, one of his very first nerdy roles was in Catherine Bigelow's, I think, first film, Strange Days, which is an amazing movie if you haven't seen it. This is him with like insanely long blonde hair, which is kind of funny. It's a wonderful science fiction film. The story was written by James Cameron back when Bigelow and Cameron were a thing. They were together. And it's just this fantastically acted, just an amazing cast movie with Ralph Fiennes and Angela Bassett and Juliette Lewis here, of course, and Tom Sizemore. It's really worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Made way back in 1995. He also did Red Planet, the Val Kilmer starring space thriller monster sort of movie. It's kind of hard to describe. But you can see here them discovering the fact that the plant material that they had seeded on Mars, more than a generation ago, was way more effective at creating a breathable atmosphere than they anticipated when they finally got onto the planet. Just one of the very many weird things that happened in the movie. And it's a solid science fiction movie. Possibly one of my favorite movies he's in, although his role isn't huge, pardon me, was 2003 Dreamcatcher, the Stephen King novel adaptation. Morgan Freeman, Damian Lewis, Timothy Olyphant, just a fantastic cast. And yes, I probably have a soft spot for this movie because it takes place mostly in Maine in the winter, um, and its big climax scene takes place at a major pumping station at the Quabbin Reservoir here in Massachusetts. So, but it's still a cool movie aside from that, and really bloody and pretty gory for a Stephen King movie. So if you're into that, there's some really disturbing gore scenes that don't bear commenting any further here. Um, so if you are a fan or were a fan of Tom Sizemore's work as I was, he also then went on to do a ton of television stuff as well as more movies. Um, this article here on Deadline points out that he has worked with directors like, of course, Spielberg, Michael Mann, Arthur Penn, Martin Scorsese, Oliver Stone, Catherine Bigelow, as we've mentioned, Tony Scott, Lawrence Kasdan, which is this movie here. Um, he's done a lot of really great work, although the bulk of his best stuff is in that 10-year period of like 93 to 2003. He will be missed. As an actor, I really enjoyed his work. I'm sure, obviously, he is going to be missed deeply by his friends, his family, and all of his fans. So rest in peace, Mr. Sizemore. And on that, we're going to move on to our next topic. This is Clancy Brown, the amazing, the wonderful Clancy Brown. And the news is that Clancy Brown is going to be joining the cast of the upcoming HBO Max series The Penguin, a spin-off of Matt Reeves' The Batman movie. That series will continue starring Colin Farrell as the Penguin. Clancy Brown is going to be joining as Salvatore Maroni. Maroni is another mob boss, crime lord in Gotham, who I believe was a rival to Carmine Falcone, and probably is going to be stepping into the vacuum created by Falcone's loss. But in the comics, he's also the crime lord that disfigured Harvey Dent, therefore making Harvey Dent into Two-Face. I don't know whether they're going to do anything with that in this. I think that would be a very interesting path to go down. But I'm guessing that Maroni is going to be as big a villain character here in this upcoming Penguin series, or the Penguin, as that character was in the series Gotham. Luminous, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to Brian Michael Bendis' true comic about the Spider-Man Broadway debacle. I don't know if that's a real thing, Luminous. I might actually be. If it is, let me know. But it would be really funny. But yeah, Clancy Brown, yeah. You probably don't need to know who he is, but he goes all the way back to playing Rawhide in one of my favorite movies of all time, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. He was, of course, the Kurgan in Highlander. He was, I think it's Captain Hadley in Shawshank Redemption. Just so many amazing roles. He discovered voice work and then has been in like almost everything you've ever seen. It seems like, I mean, pretty close. He was in every episode of the sadly very short-lived series Megas XRL. He was in every episode of, I always get this wrong if I don't read it because there's just too many words in it. Oh, go on, where is he? Oh, I must have gone by it. Super Monkey Robot Hyperforce Go. I think I missed a word. I'm pretty sure I missed a word in there. Like just random voices in all 52 episodes. But now to most modern audiences, he is, of course, known as Mr. Krabs in literally everything SpongeBob. Every SpongeBob series, movie, spin-off, what have you. So, yeah. just a fantastic actor. I'm really looking forward to this. I really hope they do something wonderful with his role so that he's got an opportunity to, really chew into a role. The last most terrifying villain role I've seen him as was in the HBO series Carnival, where he played the main antagonist, Brother Justin Crow. Absolutely terrifying portrayal of a probably demonically possessed preacher. So yeah, he's really solid. Luminous, it's a real comic, just announced this week. Bendis was hired to write the musical, which I had not known. I had no idea either. Wow, I bet he regrets that. That's gonna be fun. The inside story about how that whole thing. So the Spider-Man, what's going to Turn Off the Dark, I think was the name of it. Yeah. Okay. Now, but I thought George Santos created that. At least he said he did in one of his publications or one of his lies, or was a producer on it or something. Anyway. So yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. But for this piece, Clancy Brown joining the series The Penguin, in production already. Hopefully we'll get to see it soon. I don't think it says in here anywhere, no, when that will happen. But, fingers crossed. All right, one of his other roles, relatively recently, was in the Netflix Daredevil series, where he played the main villain in the short arc that introduced the Punisher in season 2. And then in like one flashback in the first season of the Punisher, he played that same colonel as a major back when he was in charge of Frank Castle's unit, Special Forces unit. So this next story actually ties into that, as it turns out. And this is a sourced rumor story, but coming from the Hollywood Reporter. So chances are it's probably legit that John Bernthal is going to be coming back as Frank Castle as the Punisher in the upcoming Disney Plus series Daredevil Born Again. This article in the Hollywood Reporter points out that the Punisher is not a character in the limited run series Born Again, written by Frank Miller and drawn by Dave Mazzucchelli. So, who knows how much of a role he'll have in the series and how much of that Born Again comic run they're actually going to be adapting. We do know that Vincent D'Onofrio is coming back as Kingpin. He is the main villain in Born Again. So, it'll be interesting to see where they take him. I hope he's not just a one-off, like, a one episode, hey, look, it's the Punisher. But I also hope he doesn't become sort of like Daredevil's sidekick, as it were. It's hard to say. Disney money can get people to do a lot of things. I don't know that Bernthal would come back for a one-off, but if they threw enough money at him, who knows? I'm liking this. I really like the idea. I was a big fan of the idea that they were going to do an adaptation of Born Again when they announced that Charlie Cox was coming back as Daredevil. He got introduced, of course, in the She-Hulk series. Fisk, Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin, got reintroduced in the Hawkeye series. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually reintroduce Punisher in anything prior to this, or if he's actually going to just first appear again in the upcoming Daredevil series. Luminous, I want Deborah Ann Woll back as Karen Page in Daredevil. She was my favorite character. I am not going to disagree at all with that take. I would love to see Karen Page. So I don't know if you've read the Born Again run, and I don't want to give away any of the plot details about Karen Page's role in that, but Karen Page has a very important role in the Born Again comic book run. And if they are going to keep that, I really hope they bring back Deborah Ann Woll and don't recast it. If they can't bring her back, I'd rather they just wrote that aspect of it out and change the conflicts that occur from Karen Page's role in the comic book to something different. Um, but if you have read those comics, boy, would it be great to see Deborah Ann Woll in that particular Karen Page interpretation. Um, but I'm really keen on seeing this. I can't wait to see when we get more information about this, or when this hits. I know it's been announced when this is going to happen. It's up on one of the various MCU timeline things. I think it's this year. I hope anyway. But yeah, Daredevil Born Again, according to the Hollywood Reporter and their sources, hasn't been verified by anybody else yet. And of course, they say Marvel was not able to be reached for comment. Bernthal is back. Frank Castle is back. I like it. It also, I think it's very interesting in that indicates that this is going to be probably more serious than a lot of the MCU Disney Plus stuff recently. Probably more along the lines of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier level of serious, as opposed to some of the other things that have come along after it. I can't imagine Bernthal again coming back and playing the Punisher in a even approaching She-Hulk level of sort of quippiness and so on. It's all the indications are if they are adapting anywhere closely to the Born Again comic itself or comic run itself, and with Bernthal back on board, is that it's going to be a lot more serious. And apparently there's also rumors out there that Jenna Ortega is going to be playing White Tiger in Born Again, who is also not in the series, in the comic book series, but would be awesome. Luminous, I read the Frank Miller Daredevil Born Again comic. It's excellent. A great choice to adapt. I agree. If no other reason, it is probably one of the most amazing emotional character growth arcs of any superhero portrayed ever. It's really good. So spring of 2024 is when we are currently expecting to get Daredevil Born Again. So yeah, basically a little more than a year from now. I can't wait. Moving on to our next topic, and that is news about the gentleman on the right there, Aaron Taylor Johnson. That is him with Brian Tyree Henry in the really solid fun action movie Bullet Train from this previous summer. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It's kind of advertised as come on. Just completely lost his last name. Brad Pitt. Thank you. Loomis, I just hope they don't add songs by Bono. Why would they add songs by Bono to Born? Okay, I guess. I can see that. Anyway, Bullet Train, go watch it. It is as much a movie about these two characters as it is about Brad Pitt's character. It's really good. But the news is that Aaron Taylor Johnson is joining the currently in production remake of Nosferatu being made by The Lighthouse and the Northman's Robert Eggers. This cast is just, insane. Bill Skarsgård, Nicholas Hoult, Willem Dafoe. And it turns out Bill Skarsgård is going to be playing the character Nosferatu. I guess Willem Dafoe did it before, so he doesn't need to again. But this sort of what they call a reimagining of the story. In this story, Lily Rose Depp plays a young woman who is obsessed with an ancient Transylvanian vampire who stalks her. And I like this idea. I really like the fact that Aaron Taylor Johnson is joining it. I like the whole cast so far. Bill Skarsgård as Nosferatu. Hard to get creepier than Bill Skarsgård. Interesting. That makes two Skarsgård brothers he's worked with. He just needs to do Stellan Skarsgård in something, and he'll have the whole thing. Assuming I know all of them, there may be others. The Eggers has worked with, I should say, not Aaron Taylor Johnson. So yeah, it's in production. I'm really liking the idea that we're going to get this take on Nosferatu, and it's being done by somebody who is as slavishly devoted to sort of historical authenticity to the extent that that he can, or his production team can, as Robert Eggers. Like the accents in The Lighthouse are a particular type of far down east, period accurate Maine accent, which is just nuts. Absolutely wonderful. And of course, all of the wonderful costuming and so on in The Northman. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think it's going to be great. Doesn't say in here when it's coming out, but since they've pretty much rounded out the cast, I think it does say here that they're just about to start production. No, it is currently underway. They're already in production in Prague. So another one I'm very much looking forward to. I am going to take a quick video break. I just realized that one of the disadvantages of having my face up all the time instead of having the images up all the time is that I don't really have an opportunity to put eye drops in my eyes, and as you may have noticed, my left eye is pretty inflamed from my allergies. So pardon me while I bring up by the way, go check us out on twitch.tv/nerdcaliber. All right, moving on to our next topic. That is, I went right by, there it is. The news is that the upcoming season 5, the next season of Star Trek Discovery, will be its last on Paramount Plus. Well, its last anywhere. I've liked this season. The series. It's had its ups and downs. I think the last 2 seasons have been pretty good. And I am going to be sad to see it go. It's very innovative. It's got a fantastic cast. They really, over the course of 4 seasons now, apparently they're just wrapping up filming in season 5. So I guess 5 seasons. They've really done a great job bringing the characters into their own roles. The writing has stayed fairly solid. Again, it's had its ups and downs, but it's generally pretty solid. And I know a lot of people had a real hard time handling the sort of the very warlike nature of the first season. But the first season dealt with something that actually happened in, the standard original series timeline, and that is the first conflict with the Klingons. So that happened, and this happens to show a way that happened. If you're going to show a war, basically, it's got to be, at least to some extent, a war series. Now they've moved past that. They used it as a launch for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, the pre-James T. Kirk, Christopher Pike Enterprise series, which is primo. If you don't like Discovery, because it's not like OG Star Wars, the James Kirk Star Wars series, go watch Strange New Worlds. It is so much like that. While it's got its own feel and everything. Discovery absolutely has its own feel. I really like what they've done with it. And it's going to be a bummer for me to see it go. Now, I won't get to see it go until early 2024. I've got basically a year before they put up season 5. And apparently what this article in Deadline says is that they are going to be doing a ton of promotion for this over the course of the next year. So expect that. that's going to be a thing. But if you are a Discovery fan, look forward to its final season. The fairly meaningless description here in Deadline is, and I quote, "The fifth and final season will find Captain Burnham, Sonequa Martin Green, and the crew of the USS Discovery uncovering a mystery that will send them on an epic adventure across the galaxy to find an ancient power whose very existence has been deliberately hidden for centuries, but there are others on the hunt as well, dangerous foes who are desperate to claim the prize themselves and will stop at nothing to get it," i.e., an extended movie, which is essentially what all of the individual series have been. So we'll see exactly how well they stick the landing on this and close off the series. But I'm sad to see it go, and I'm looking forward to that final season. All right, moving on to our next topic. That is, we have our next Hellboy. This is Jack Kesey, or Casey. He is has just been cast for the upcoming Hellboy reboot called Hellboy the Crooked Man, based on an actual Hellboy comic run, Hellboy the Crooked Man. And he was Black Tom in Deadpool 2. He was in the series The Strain. He was in Baywatch. So the idea they cast him, he's got the stature, and he is apparently a pretty solid actor. His role as Black Tom was good. He was a good villain. Not that he was required to do a whole lot. But this does put to bed the speculation that I was reading an awful lot on the internet about whether David Harbour was coming back for this reboot. Because Millennium Media was the production company that did the most recent Hellboy with David Harbour, with the intention of turning that into a multiple series, like a trilogy of movies. And obviously it didn't work, and so they're trying again. Now the differences are, they are basing this on an actual comic run. The writer of that comic run, or writers, Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy, and his pretty much longtime collaborator in the Hellboy comics, Chris Golden, are writing the script for this movie. And the director is Brian Taylor of Taylor and Neveldine, who did the Crank movies. So this could be a really interesting take. The fact that Mignola is so deeply connected, when we first reported on this reboot a couple of weeks ago, I talked quite a bit about how Mike Mignola is so deeply connected to this version, this remake. And I think that's a really good sign. The first one, with Ron Perlman, did an excellent job of adapting many of the elements of some of the Hellboy stories. But again, that's Guillermo del Toro, and he and the whole Hellboy mythos and world are perfectly simpatico. So that's not surprising. But then that reboot just went off the rails. Having Mignola back, sort of spearheading at least the writing of where this goes, I think is a great choice. I don't really know that much about Kesey other than seeing him in Deadpool 2. I haven't really seen any of his other work. Sadly, I did not watch The Strain. But I trust the people that cast him. So good catch. I think we'll definitely see how this plays out, how well he does. I said this when people were talking about David Harbour. So this story is set sometime in the 1950s in Appalachia. Since Hellboy was discovered as a tween or young tween at the oldest, somewhere either during or right before the beginning of World War II, if this story is set in the 1950s, even if it's the late 1950s, he can't be more than his early 20s. So having Harbor, it just wouldn't work. So I'm glad they cast younger because it makes more sense. As much as I like David Harbour, if you haven't seen um, what is his that Santa Claus movie? Um, anyway, not Deadly Nights, Silent. Anyway, it was fantastic. He's amazing. Of course, he's going to be in the Thunderbolts again as Red Guardian. Yeah, I really like David Harbour. He was not right for Hellboy, or at least that script was terrible, and he definitely wouldn't have been right for a Hellboy of this particular age. So I think this is a good job with their casting. All right, moving on to our next kind of two stories, I guess. Um, so this is from the recent movie Dune. This is Paul behind my head. In the test of the Gom Jabbar with the Reverend Mother Helen Gaius Mahayam, the leader of the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood, in this particular telling. And of course, we've talked about the fact that Dune, the Sisterhood, working title, the spin-off series based on the books about the creation of the Bene Gesserit set 10,000 years before the occurrences of the book Dune, is in the works at HBO Max. Cast the two lead sisters, the director, executive producer, was the co-creator and the director of Chernobyl, the fantastic HBO series Chernobyl. Well, the news is that he ain't doing it. Johan Renck has stepped away, or been fired, or they're not really making it terribly clear. But also, one of the sisters, Shirley Henderson, is leaving the series as well. So it is in a production hiatus right now as they're looking to have somebody step in to be the director. And apparently this isn't the first time. I do remember we talked about this. One of the co-showrunners stepped away back in November, leaving the other one as the sole showrunner. So this is the quote directly from HBO Max. Johan Renck has completed his work on the series and a new director will be brought on. Through mutual agreement, Johan is moving on to pursue other projects. Additionally, Shirley Henderson will be exiting the series and will no longer be playing Tula Harkonnen. Completed his work? It didn't seem like he was hired just to direct the first episode, and in fact, he is still listed as an executive producer on the series. Deadline is speculating, based on their sources, that this was a conflict between Renck's more auteur directorial vision and the look and feel of the Denis Villeneuve Dune movies, or movie and upcoming movie. And that may be the case, and if it is, I honestly think that's kind of a bummer, because this is set 10,000 years before Dune. It would have, and it should have, a completely different look and effect, and feel and tone. I mean, just, but maybe that isn't actually what was going on here. And the second part of this news is that that the next day, so this was announced February 28th, March 1st, it was announced that Renck is going to be directing, and I guess producing or show running, a new series for Amazon Studios based on John Wyndham's science fiction book, The Day of the Triffids. So clearly he got recruited away. You know, I mean, there may have been a conflict in style and tone and whatever, but, you know, Amazon threw a buttload of money at him, said, hey, we want you to make this post-apocalyptic series because, you know, HBO Max is killing our asses with Last of Us. So come on over. And he said yes. Literally just announced. We have no idea when it's going to happen, when production starts or anything. But I'm guessing, as Deadline puts it here, this is fast-tracked. They probably want to get something out as soon as possible to strike while the post-apocalyptic Last of Us irons are hot. So we'll probably start seeing casting and all sorts of announcements fairly quickly. I'm excited. I like the book. I liked the original movie back in the 50s. Or I'm sorry, 1962. I didn't see the Day of the Triffids BBC limited series. It's probably available on the BBC streaming service. I might have to look into that. But it says here that it was a fairly solid adaptation. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's kind of a bummer that Rank is no longer part of Dune the Sisterhood, and that had all of the repercussions that it's currently having with the production shutdown, possibly related to Shirley Henderson leaving and them having to find another co-lead. But it happens. So we'll see. They may get an even better. Give it to the Daniels. Can you imagine what the makers of Swiss Army Man and Everything Everywhere All at Once would do with a Dune Bene Gesserit series? That will never happen, but boy, that would be cool. All right. Our last story for the night is the announcement back-to-back, first of the voice cast for the upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. And then, like within 2 days, the actual the trailer. That's the word coming out. The actual trailer came out. So let's start with the voice cast. This voice cast is just amazing. So the movie, if you've seen the trailer, is set pretty much right at the beginning of the Turtles sort of figuring out their abilities. So the voice cast is a bunch of fairly young actors, none of whom I really know that I recall. Micah Abbey as Donatello, Shimon Brown Jr. as Michelangelo, Nicholas Cantu as Leonardo, and Brady Noon as Raphael. But the supporting cast, and this was announced at the Nickelodeon's Kid Choice Awards this past Saturday by Seth Rogen, who will be playing Bebop, up against his partner in crime, John Cena as Rocksteady, Hannibal Buress as Genghis Frog, Rose Byrne as Leatherhead, Jackie Chan as Splinter, Ice Cube as Superfly, Ayo Edebiri as April O'Neil, Edebiri coming off of her Independent Spirit Awards win for the series The Bear, Giancarlo Esposito as Baxter Stockman, Post Malone as Ray Follett, Paul Rudd as Mondo Gecko, and Maya Rudolph as Cynthia Utrom, who I don't know. What a voice cast. And if you look at the image that's there behind me, that's fairly indicative of the art style. It has a very influenced by the tone or the idea of creating a comic book art as a moving picture, like Into the Spider-Verse, with a completely different style. It is a completely different stylistic choice, but that's the feel I got from this. Was it is CG animation, but done in a very comic booky style. And so go check out the trailer. It's really good. The young voice actors are doing a fantastic job in the trailer. It looks really funny. I can't wait to see it. This is directed by Jeff Rowe, who directed The Mitchells versus the Machines. If you have not seen The Mitchells versus the Machines, go watch that. That's one of the best animated movies to come out in the last couple of years. It's a great story. It's hilarious. It's got quite possibly my favorite Danny McBride role, coming off as a very sympathetic dad, not typical Danny McBride stuff. Um, and it's really solid. Excellent series or excellent movie. Go watch it. That director is doing this. That was also Nickelodeon Studios' first ever CG animated theatrical production. It also had an art style that I thought was very influenced by Into the Spider-Verse. Again, not like Into the Spider-Verse and not at all like the style in this new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, or at least based on the trailer. But you could see the influence there. And I'm looking forward to this. I think this is going to be really solid. Looking at here, and again, as always, I should have looked this up before I started talking. The article here does not have a release date, and I don't recall if it said so at the end of the trailer. But it's going to be coming up fairly soon. They announced, obviously, the entire voice cast in one shot and showed off the first trailer. So I'm assuming this is coming out this year. So definitely look at the trailer if you are a Turtles fan. I like this take. I like this adaptation. Thank God we didn't get, the Michael Bay Turtles as aliens, whatever the heck that thing was supposed to be, and we got this instead. All right, folks, that is it. We'll end with our usual entreaty for you to go check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/nerdcaliber. And consider being a patron for us there. Luminous is saying, I'm sad to report the new CBS series True Lies is very bland so far. It is by Matt Nix, who created Burn Notice, so I was hoping True Lies would be better. We never really covered it because, it's nerd adjacent, being made by the movie made by James Cameron, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and so on, but it's not really a nerd movie technically. So we never covered the upcoming or the currently running series. I haven't checked it out. I probably won't now based on that. I didn't see how you could turn that into a series without the quality of Arnold Schwarzenegger, of Jamie Lee Curtis, Bill Paxton. There are so many performances in that movie that make the movie more than just a, Arnold Schwarzenegger super spy action spectacle. And if you don't have people who are going to pull off that same level of performance, it's a generic super spy action spectacle. And apparently that's what it's turned out to be, according to Luminous. But anyway, folks, that's it. We will see you at an upcoming show in a little less than 2 weeks, or a little less than 3 weeks. God, a little less than 2 weeks. That would be scary. We have PAX East. I finally get to announce what I've been teasing for the last couple of shows. We are going to be doing our cosplay and photography shootout panel. It is Saturday at 11 in Arachnid Theater. Limited teams. I can't say exactly how many. That's literally going to be determined right up to the last minute. We do have more time than we've ever had to run this panel this year. So that's a great thing for us. We've always had more people showing up to try to be on a team than we've been able to field. Teams will be randomly thrown together, a photographer and up to 2, maybe 3, depending on the situation, cosplayers. If you're not familiar with it, you take your team out into the wilds of the BCEC and make the best photo you can on a theme that we tell you right at the last minute. That will be related to something nerdy in gaming and, timely or whatever. But you're not going to know what it is until literally just before you head out. You come back, you use a camera that has a removable digital card that we can insert into our card readers. There are no phones allowed as photographic implements for submission. You have to use a digital camera of some sort. And we will then put those up on a screen, and our panel will critique them lightly. And we will have an audience vote winner and a panelist vote winner, and those participating team members will get prizes. So check it out. It's up on the schedule. Took a while for us to sort of pin down some details before it got on the schedule. Thank you, Luminous says it's a great panel. We love running it. It's so much fun. And so definitely check it out. Saturday, 11 o'clock in Arachnid Theater. With that said, we'll see you at an upcoming show. Please stay safe out there at all events you're going to. If it does not have a mask requirement, and PAX does, all the time, even panelists, masks are required. That will be true with our participants as well. Your photos will be masked. If they are not, we will not allow you to continue to be judged and potentially win prizes. But stay safe out there. Please wear a mask, even if the convention or the event you're going to doesn't require it. It's just smart and safe. We'll see you at an upcoming show or our show next week.